last time we completed the life cycle methods. Now today we'll build an application, so we'll get hands-on experience. So we'll not use Webpack, so we'll use now Vite.js. So Vite.js is a popular alternative to Create React app. So you can use Create React app also, but that's a slower version. So instead, this is the recommended way, Vite.js. It's a lot faster. So to create application, you can just say npm create Vite, and you can give the project name. So I can say contact app training contact manager app. You can select React then JavaScript. Now this folder is created. You can cd into it. Now I'll open this in VS Code. So this is the folder structure. So it has src and all the other main files. So if you see the package.json, now we have only two dependencies, React and React DOM, and these are dev dependencies. So now there is no node modules. So once this project is created, you can just say npm install. So it will read all the dependencies and dev dependency. All these will be installed, and it will create a node modules folder. So it is faster than Create React app. If you are using Create React app, the npm install takes a lot of time. Especially if you are on Windows, it will take around 5 minutes. So now node modules is there. From package.json, we have now dev script that we need to run to start the application. npm run dev. You can see it's quickly started. So this is the initial code of this particular Vite.js application. So we'll remove the not required code. So this I don't want. I'll remove everything from here. App.css I don't want. So this also RCC create class component. I will create from scratch. Now if you see in public, we don't have anything, and we have index.html. So index.html is the same format, div id root, and this is the main JSX file, like just like our bundle.js file. So this is the final file which will contain all our JavaScript React code. Now this is the main file, our rendering. So we are rendering app component. We are importing index.css, which has only this code, and we are rendering this. So let's see how it displays. If I refresh, you can see app component is displayed. Now we'll use Bootstrap. So for CSS styling, so this is base CSS will be used, but for the component we will use a React Bootstrap. So React Bootstrap is a library which is component based. So whatever components we'll use, form, then suppose some model, these are all component based. So you can click on components and you can search for here forms. You can see this is the input field. For that we are using form F capital, then there will be button B capital. So this is like a React way of writing components. So we'll use React Bootstrap for all the styling, and for CSS we have installed that Bootstrap. So once this Bootstrap library is installed, we can go to main.jsx, and here we need to import that base Bootstrap CSS. So we'll use Bootstrap based CSS bootstrap.min.css. So once we installed any package, that goes into node modules. So in node modules we have Bootstrap. Let me make this bigger. You can see we have Bootstrap folder. So every package has a different folder. This CSS, and here we have bootstrap.min.css. So this is a minified version. So it's a smaller in size and it will load faster. There is also larger version like original code, but this is a larger file and it will load slow. That's why always load the minified CSS and not just bootstrap.css. Don't load this. This will be file size will be larger. .min.css. So this should be the first statement. First means before your index.css. You can put it here also, but it should be before index.css. So if some CSS classes you want to override, you can override if you add it afterwards. If you add it before, then you will not be able to override the CSS. So now I will save this, and this is imported. Now we can render some content. So let's say we are building a contact list form. So we have some form where we add a contact. So we'll take name, email, and phone number. And that added contact we will display in the below. So we can add multiple contacts. So we have list of contacts, and that will display in a table format below that particular contact form. So let's first create form component. So we can create, let me make this smaller. So we can create components folder. So whenever you are creating any components, add that inside the component folder. So inside SRC, create components. Now we'll just display header. So it will be header dot. So now this is a with.js application. So we don't use JS, we use JSX. So this is specific, which says that it's a React code. So JS is, you can add any JavaScript code also. But when you say JSX, it's indicate that it's a React code. You can see the icon also changes. So this icon is right now JS. If I add X, it changed to React. So it indicates that it's React code. Now we can create a class header extends react.component. And you can import React, and we will have render method. Here we can return let's say h1 contact manager app. Now you can see header is grayed out. That means it's not used. So we need to export this. Export default header. Now we can use this in any of the component. Now inside the app.jsx, instead of this, we'll use header. The header is imported at the top from components header. So I have to restart. You can see contact manager app is displayed. So let me zoom out. So this is the original version. So now we want this to be in the center. So we'll create a new CSS file. So inside you can write all the code inside the index.css, but you can also create separate CSS for each of the components. So inside component, I can create header folder, and I will move this header.jsx inside it. Now you need to change this import here. So now you can see it's imported components header. Now inside this header, I can create header.css. And so whenever you write any CSS, make sure to create a parent div and add class which is specific to that particular component. So I can say it header. And inside the CSS, use that class to style. So this will be like a parent component, like parent, what you can say, CSS class. So if you don't do this and you directly use, let's say I want to use h1. For h1, I will style text align center. And I will import this CSS, import dot slash, zoom out, header dot CSS. So now I have imported, you can see it is in center. Now I can add h1 here also. H1, this is another header. And you can see this is also in the center. So if you inspect this, you can see this also has text align center. So I have added this text align center in header.css, and this file is imported only inside this header.jsx. Still, that style is applied inside app.jsx without importing that. Why? Because when you, as you have seen in the main.jsx, not here, public index.html. This is the final file which will import all your CSS, all your JavaScript. Everything is included here. So if you see here inside the head, so you will see this in Webpack. If you have seen those videos, you will know this. So whatever CSS we write is finally added as a style tag. So this is the one style tag. This is another style. You can see h1. So this is common for your entire HTML content. So whatever you render, the CSS is common. It's included inside the head itself. So it gets applied to everywhere. So whenever you want to use h1, this particular CSS will be applied. So you don't want to collide with any other CSS. So if you want that CSS to be applied only for this particular header component, you can use some specific class for this header. Now inside the CSS, you prefix that with dot header. Now this h1 will only apply if it's inside a header class. So now you can see this is not in the center, but this is in the center. Why? Because this is inside the header class and this is not inside header class. So this is direct child of this two. So this way your CSS will not collide with each other. So if you have written this h1 CSS in this component, you might write it in any other component also. So you might add, let's say, color orange. So if you add this inside index.css, you can do that. So you can see both of them are changed. So you don't want to override that CSS. So all other h1 will directly apply to any of the HTML elements. So that is not what is expected. So to avoid that, you can use this way, like whenever you create a component, let's say header. So for that particular component, give some specific parent class. So whatever CSS that you add, whatever components, whatever HTML that you write, prefix that with the header. So for the CSS, so it will be dot header inside that h1. If you add some paragraph here, let's say title, this is title, then it will be dot header and paragraph. So let's say letter spacing 1 pixel. Now you can see this has applied this letter spacing 1 pixel. So that is how you can apply. And one more thing you need to remember, don't use direct HTML tags like what we have done here. So we are directly using h1, directly use p. So what happens is later, if you want to change h1 to h2, your styling will not be applied. So now you can see this is not in the center. So if later, like when you are actually working in large projects, later you might change this paragraph to span or you change it to div. Now your CSS will not be applied. You have lost your CSS. So whenever you write any CSS targeting that paragraph or anything, that is the wrong way. So instead write a class here. So you can say heading and this you can say title. Now target that with that particular class. So this should be heading and this will be title. Now it will correctly apply that CSS. Because you can see this is now in the center. Now it does not matter. You can change h1 to h2. It will still apply that heading class. You can see it's still there. So it's in the center itself. You can change it to span. It does not matter because we are targeting that by a particular class. So and it's closed. So you can see it still works. So whenever these are some things which nobody tells, but these are very important for maintaining. When your application grows, it's very hard to maintain the CSS. What CSS you are writing, some other CSS might override your own CSS. So it's difficult to find out from where that CSS is getting overwritten. So that's why there are some extra React library like styled components are there. So this also makes each component separate CSS. So you write CSS in that particular component also. To avoid these issues, we have separate library style components. There is also CSS modules syntax. So you can also use these CSS modules. So separate out each component with separate CSS. So you don't need to use those libraries. If you don't want to, you just make this simple arrangement. Whenever you create component, add one parent class. So write CSS targeting for this any of the HTML content by specifying prefixing that particular class. So everywhere include this header. So don't write dot title, never write like this. So this title will be applied anywhere. So if you use title class in any of the component, that will get applied. I don't want that because this CSS is finally imported into app.jsx. So even if you are not importing, final you have this main.jsx. So your CSS is imported inside the main.jsx. So that's why don't write direct CSS classes. At least one parent selector you should write. So if you go here, inspect like a view page source, and here you have this main.jsx. If you open, you have this index.css included. Here I think you cannot see, but we have seen that in a webpack. So you have that react.create element call, and everywhere you will get that information. So that is finally converted. Here you don't see this what is known as with.js hides that. You can see that by adding some configuration in with config. So you can enable the source map. So you can search for with.js enable source map. I think you can also see in the sources. So if I search for here of header, yes, you can see here. So this is your header.css. So this is like a JavaScript itself. So you have all the CSS code, its header heading that you have imported. So this is finally converted. So all the CSS is also imported into JavaScript file. So now here it has separated into header.css, but finally it's imported inside the JavaScript file. So that's why whenever you create write CSS, make sure you add at least one parent selector. So that will not make it collide with any of other CSS. So now, and this class, whatever you are using, this should be unique. Like this header class, you should not use in any of the components. So you make sure it's specific for that particular component. So your CSS will not collide with each other. So that's enough for the information. So now we have this header. Let me remove this. And inside header also, let's remove this title. We don't want that. So just for demo. Now this is header. And let's create a form. So we can create inside components, we can create another form. We can say contact form. Inside that we can create contact form dot JSX or CC, that class component. So here we will create a form where user can enter the details. So now let's create this. So now give some specific class name, contact hyphen form. So when you give CSS classes, it's common to add hyphen in between. So when you give ID, don't give hyphen here, give underscore. So sometimes when you give hyphen, it does not get parsed and you will not be able to find that element. But whenever you are giving classes, it's common to give hyphen. Now inside this, we'll add a form tag. And inside this, we'll add a div. So here, let's say add a label. I don't want. So HTML4 you can give. Here it will be name. Input type equal to text. Placeholder equal to enter your name. Now this HTML4, as I said, in HTML it's for attribute, but in React you need to write it HTML4 because for is a reserved keyword. So everything is converted to object and you cannot access any property as a reserved keyword. So this is HTML4, I can give name and I can give ID equal to name. So this is not required, this is optional, but this is good for accessibility reason. So now let's import this class inside app. So we have header, after that we'll add that contact form. So you have this contact. So when I click on this name, your input field is automatically focused. So that's the advantage of that particular HTML4 attribute. So this HTML4 and ID, if they are matching, so when you click on name, it will automatically focus that particular input field. So when I click on name, this particular input field is automatically focused. And this is also good for testing. So when you are testing using, you'll say React testing library or whatever library you are using. So React testing library needs accessibility. So you will be able to find any element by label or input element. So this HTML4 is important. But for us, we don't want this. So I don't want to always keep writing this. That was just information. So you should write that. So now we need to center this content. So I can create one inside CSS, main content, give width of 500 pixel and margin 0 auto. So top bottom 0 margin and left right auto. So this will make the content in the center. Now wherever I want to add that content, I can add class equal to main content. Now you can see it's in the center. This is 500 pixel contact manager app. Can make this extra line center. Yes. So let's add that also. Now I don't want this side by side. I want them one below the other. So what you can do is here you can add a class name of what you can say input control. So you are now when you are React developer, you need to design your own CSS, write your own CSS also. So you need to know how to write CSS. So Flexbox is really useful. You should learn Flexbox. Everywhere it's a common interview question also. Do you know like Flexbox CSS properties? So you everywhere you should use you are using Flexbox to style components or input elements. So it makes your HTML responsive, website responsive. Now I can create contact form.css. Now I have given here contact form, and this is input control dot input control. So this will be display flex. So when you say display flex, they will be all the child component, like direct child of this label and input will be side by side. But I don't want side by side. So I can say flex direction column. So they will be one below the other. So I need to import this CSS here. Import dot slash contact form dot CSS. You can see now they are one below the other. So now because of that text align center, it's going in the center. I don't want, let me remove this. So this is looking better. Let's, what we can do, we can decrease the width again. Let's make it 400. So it will be shorter. Save that. Okay, that's fine. So name input element, let's add some padding for the input element. So here you can give, or let's style all the input elements. So inside contact form, input control, all the input elements, let's give padding 5 pixel top bottom left right 10 pixel. So now this is bigger one. Let's add border radius 5 pixel. So this is some border is added. Border color transparent. Pixel solid. Now this is name. Now we also want email. So I will duplicate this. This will be email. Input type will be email. Enter your email. You have email. Let's add some margin for the input control. So let me bring this CSS here. Input control we have here. Margin top bottom 1 rem, left right 0. So there will be some spacing. Let's give phone, email type equal to text. Enter your phone. Phone is also added. Now we need to add a button. So again, let's duplicate this. So this will be button. Here we can say add contact. Give some class of button. We have added button. So let's style that contact form, input control, button. So let's see first how it's displaying. So add contact is fine. Let's add some padding, top bottom 5 pixel. Yes, so this is looking better. Let's add some. Also we have already installed Bootstrap, so you can add Bootstrap CSS, BTN secondary. So these are Bootstrap classes, and I can use BTN primary. Oh, this is normal button. So we can use Bootstrap button. We can use button component from React Bootstrap. Here I can say add contact. Let me remove this. So if you see, I will not import it. Button from React Bootstrap. We have imported. Yes, you can see add contact is display. So this is blue. Yeah, this is fine. So we don't need to write our own CSS. So now we have this name, email, and phone. Now whatever user enters, so right now you can see when I click, it's not submitting. So what is the default action of submit? So when you submit a form, it should refresh the page, but it's not submitting because its type is not submit. So if you don't give this, and if I inspect this button, you can see its type is button. We don't want button. So we have included that in a form. So we want to submit that form. So we can say type submit. Now if you inspect, you can see its type is submit. Now when I click on this, your form will be submitted, like page will be reloaded. That is the default action of form submission. Now I don't want this, let me close. So now I want to store the information whatever user enters. So to store all the any information in a component, we declare a state. So what I want to store? I want to store name. So default value will be empty. Then email will be empty and phone, it will be empty. So now this state, so I can destructure here this dot state, name, email, phone. And I can give that default value of name, email, and phone. So it will be empty by default, but I can give default value of mic, then it will populate that mic in the input field. So now I have given this value field. So whenever you give value, value is optional. You don't need to give this. So I don't need to provide this value. This is optional. And I can add on change handler here. So I want to change this particular state. So I can add an event listener here and you will automatically get event. I can say set state, and I need to pass object. And here I want to update that name property because I'm changing the name. So I can say event.target.value. So whatever you have input field, that value, whatever user types will come using event.target.target. The target is this particular element. So if you want, you can print that. I can write it here. CLG target event.target. When I type here, you can see target is this particular input, and each input element has a value property. So that's what we are using, event.target.value. Now we don't need this curly bracket. That was just to add console.log. So here we are setting the name. Let's copy this, set it for email. I will update email property whenever user types in the input field. So it will come from event.target.value only. And phone, I will update the phone property. Now everything is updated. We can see whether the value gets updated or not using React DevTools. I can click on this contact form. You can see all the fields. Now I can type mic at example.com 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. You can see these values are populated. So whenever I change that, it gets updated. So state is correctly getting updated. So now we want to add this contact. So to add this contact, we need to add a submit handler. So for the form, we can add on submit handler. So here, so we'll create a function. You can say handle submit. Make sure it's arrow function so you don't have to bind that as we are using class component. Now I can say this dot handle submit. And as this is again event, you will get event. And if you see, so let me lock here, submitted. So when I click, you can see the submitted is displayed, but page is refreshed. So I don't want to refresh that page. So that is the default action of form submission. So you can do an event dot prevent default. So when you call this method, whatever default action is that for that event will be prevented. So if you have on change handler, so if you are having anchor link, so when you click on that link, it opens a link in that particular window. So if you don't want to do, you can just add event.prevent default. So that event click will be prevented. So that's what we'll do here. So when I click on add contact, I don't want to refresh page. You can see now we are just seeing that submitted text here. Now we can print the value of the state, this dot state. So if you check, you can see it's empty. All the fields are empty. Now I can enter this. Click on add contact. You can see all the information that we have filled in. So we are changing the state here, and that state we are printing here. So all the values are filled in. So now we want to validate this. So I can enter. So without entering value also I can add that contact. So empty values, I should not be able to add empty value. So here you can check condition. So if, so I can destructure here again. You can say name dot trim. So trim is a JavaScript method. So if I have some spaces, hello dot trim, when I say trim, the beginning and ending spaces will be removed. You can have space in between. So I can say hello world. So between space is not removed, only the beginning and end will be. So that is the JavaScript trim function. The user might enter just spaces to add that contact, but I don't want that spaces to be allowed. So when I use trim, that spaces will be removed. So if I just use spaces without anything, you get empty value without any space. So that's what we are checking here. Not equal to empty, and email dot trim not equal to empty, and phone dot trim not equal to empty. So when all the three fields are entered, then only I will click this submitted. So then only I will display that form. So when I click add contact, you can see now it's not getting read. So I can display error message here. So I can add error msg new state. So if any of the value is not entered, I can set that state. Error msg, I can say all the fields are required. Now this state is set. I can now display it here. If there is error message, text is not empty, then I can display whatever error message is there. So when I now click on, so this should be error msg. I need to destructure. So you don't need this, as we have removed that value prop. Just keep this error message. When I click on add contact, you can see all the fields are required. Let's style this. So this is we can add a class here, error msg. So this is a common class. This is not specific to this contact form. So we can add that in a index.css. So from anywhere you can use it. So it will be text align center, letter spacing 1 pixel, and we can add a color red. Look, you can see this is display. All the fields are required. Let's also increase the font size 20 pixels. So this is a larger now. All the fields are required. So until I don't enter all the fields, this message will be there. Like when I say Mike at example.com, I click on add contact, the message is still there. So when I say this phone, you can see the message is still there. So why this message is there? Because if all the fields are valid, I am not hiding that. So what you need to do here, so if this condition is not true, like all the fields are not set, then you need to clear this. So if all the fields are set, then you need to clear this state. Error message, set it to empty. So this message is displayed if any of the field is not filled in. So it's not coming here. So we see this error message, all the fields are required. But when all the fields are filled in, then we need to clear this error message. So that's what we are doing here. Now, when I click, you have this message. Mike, click this, it's still there. Click again, it's still there. But as soon as I enter this value, click add contact, it's gone. Now we don't have any error. And in the submitted, you can see all the information. So whatever email, name, phone is there, and we also have error message. So all the state information we are successfully able to display. Now we also want to clear that error message. So clear those values. So once the contact is added, we don't want to keep this value. So user can add that contact multiple times. So that we don't want. So what's the time? We have time. So what we can do is we first need to work on adding that particular contact. So this contact form that we have, so here we are getting that contact. Now we want that contact to be added in list of contacts. So we can have multiple contacts. Yes. So if you see app.jsx, here we have form header, here we have contact form. So when we add that contact inside the contact form, I want to display these added contacts in the contact list. So let's create contact list component. Contact list.jsx rcc. So now this contact list will display just below the form. Now if you add the contact inside contact form, I want to display that in the contact list. So how can I get that contact from contact form to contact list? So what you can do, you can we can declare a new state inside app component to store all the contacts. So contacts will be an array. Now whenever I submit that contact form, I want to add a contact to this particular state. So I can declare a function here, add contact. This will receive that particular contact, and here I will set this state. So contacts array, and I don't want to lose the previous contact. So if I had added some previous contact, I want to keep that. I can spread out the previous contacts. This dot state dot contacts. So whatever previous contacts I will spread out in this new array, and the new contact I will add it here. Now this add contact method we can pass as a prop to contact form. So anytime you want to update state of a parent component from child component. So this is a child component. So I want to update this particular state. So never directly pass this state as a prop here. So you can also pass state equal to this dot state. This is not a good way. And you from the contact form, you can call set state, because now you don't have you don't know from where the state might get changed. So the contact form might pass that state to the next component, and that component might update the state. So you might have some private information inside that state. So anyone can access your private information, change that. And debugging also becomes difficult. So you will not be able to identify from where this state is getting updated. So that's why you should never pass any state to any of the component as a prop. If you want to update the state of particular component, define a method inside this component, inside that particular component, and update that state with whatever value you want. So here we have defined a new contact, add contact method, and this method will receive that contact that we are just adding. So whatever information we are entering, that contact will come here. Then we are setting state. So the property that I want to update is contacts. So I will set it to new array, and I will spread out all the already added contacts, and new contact I will just append it to here. So now I can pass this add contact here, this dot add contact. Now add contact, I can access this inside contact form. So whenever the form is submitted, error message is not there, I can call that this dot props dot add contact, and I can pass this dot state. So whatever state information I have. So now this will call this method add contact. It will have that contact. The contacts array will be updated, and I can print the contacts here. This dot state dot contacts. So we'll remove submitted is fine. So now you can see initially contacts is empty. I can say Mike at example.com to 3. When I click on add contact, you can see now contacts is an array with one object. So it has email, phone, name, and we also have error message. So I don't want that error message. So contact should have only name, email, and phone. So while adding, I can remove that error message. So where I'm adding entire state. So what you can do is you can remove that error message by destructuring. So you can use the REST operator, so object REST operator. So which property I want to remove from state? I want to remove error message. So you can say this, and rest of the property you can add it in REST. It's like any variable. You can say contact. So I will add all other property inside this contacts array, like object. So now this contact will be the actual contact without error message. You can print here. So error msg and contact. So you'll get to see what it contains. So when I add contact, all the fields are required. Now you can see error message is the actual error message and contact contains name, email, and phone. So we are successfully able to remove that error message. The contact only contains 3 fields, name, email, and phone. And that we are passing to this add contact method. Now contacts is an array with these 3 properties, name, email, and phone. So we have this information and then we can display in the contact list. So now inside app, whatever contacts we have, we can pass it to this contact list component. This dot state dot contacts. Now these contacts we can display in the contact list. Here I can say this dot props dot contacts dot map for the individual contact. I want to return what I want to return. Let's say unordered list, or you can display let's display a list. So this will be an order list. Let's display this unordered list. It will be li here. Here I can say name contact dot name. This will be name. I don't want this. Let's use that. Email, contact dot email, phone, contact dot phone. Now when I click out add contact, you don't have anything. My cat example.com, add contact. Now you can see the contact is added. So we are successfully able to display. So let's center align this. So contact form, here you can add contact list.css and we can declare parent class contact list. So contact list is UL. So let's remove those bullet points. List style none. And we have here list item. So inside contact list, we have list item. Contact list item. You can say border bottom. So solid. And we also need to center align. So you can say margin top bottom 0 and left right auto. Let's see. So this is not centered aligned. Let's see why. Oh, to work, the margin will only work when you have some. Where is margin? Contact contact list. Oh, we have not imported the CSS. Import dot slash contact list dot CSS. We also need width. So without width, margin will not work. 400 pixel. Add contact. You can see this is displaying nicely. So we can add some padding also here for the list, top, bottom, left, right, 0. Now when we add contact, you can see it's not clear. So I can add same contact multiple times, which is not good. So we can clear that form. So once the form is submitted, I'm calling that add contact. So contact is now sent to this particular add contact. Now I can again set state. So name will be empty, email will be empty, phone will be empty. So when you update that state, it will update the state value. But now to update that state, we need a value prop here. So only if you provide that value, then it will be updated. Name, email, phone with this structure. So whatever value we set, it will be updated here. Email and phone. So this will be this dot state dot name, this dot state dot email. So whenever we add contact, we'll set it to empty, and that empty value will be updated here. So when I said this, as I said, mic, it will be displayed here. So that will be set because we have this value prop. If you don't have this value prop, it will not be updated. You can see it's blank because you are not setting that value. So value is optional prop. You don't need that. But if you want to set that value, you need to add it. And when you add value prop, you have to add on change handler. So if you open console, and if I don't add this on change handler, what will happen? You can see you have warning. You provided a value prop to form field without on change handler. This will make the read only field. So you will not be able to change. So I am typing here. So the value is not getting updated. So when you add on change handler and value, that will become a controlled input. So in React, it's called as controlled input. So that input is only controlled by state. So now when you add on change handler, you are setting state. So which state you are setting? Name. And from where that value you are getting from name. So when you set that name state, the value should always come from name. So now this name is a controlled input. So your input is controlled by state. So that is known as controlled input. So you are setting name, so the value should always come from name. So whenever you name changes, your input will automatically reflect that. So I type mics, you can see it's updated. Previously, without on change handler, it was not updated. Now I can add this contact. So let's remove this default mic at example.com 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0 add a contact. So now we have this add contact. Now let's add. You can see the form is clear, so you don't need to again click. So when you click, you are getting this error. So you will not be able to add the same contact again. So I can say Jerry at example.com 1 2 3 up 9 8 7. So you also need a validation for this. So you can see only 10-digit phone number is valid. But right now I can add any digit number. So I'll add that validation, add a contact, and now that contact is added. So we can also display a message here, header. This contact is there, but if you see, we have warning, key is missing. So we are not having key. So we are using, as we have seen, whenever you render any list using map method, you need a key for the parent element. So you need a key. So what key you can use? So you should not use index. So we will be deleting this contact, editing these contacts, and when you delete contact, its order will change. So if you are using index, key will change. So if I delete the first contact, so right now if you have 3 contacts and the index will be 0 1 2. If I delete the first contact, now index will change. So now the second element will have index of 0. So the key will change. So whenever key changes, React will recreate that element. So all the divs will be recreated. This li will be recreated. So you should not use index as the key. So what you can do? So you can use add a unique ID. So while adding this contact, I can create an object. I will spread out all the properties of contact. I will add a new unique ID field, and that will come from date.now. So date.now will give you current timestamp. It will always be unique after at every millisecond also. Second, millisecond, it will always be unique. So when I say date.now, you will get this. So always, if I execute, you can see you get different value. Every second it's different. Every millisecond it's different. So if I pass this value to date, new date, you get this current value. So if I get this now, if I say new date, you can see now previously it was 11:45. Now it's 11:46. So every second or every millisecond, that value will be different. So this is hour, this is minute, and this is second. So every second that value will be different. So you will get always get different value. So that's why always use this timestamp value. So now you have this unique ID. So now we have added what we are doing, the contact. We are spreading out contact. That means name, email, and phone will be, these properties will be added. So if you don't want to spread, you can manually add that. So contact.name, email will be contact.email, and phone will be contact.phone. So this is exactly same as spreading out, but this is like extra code. So you can just spread out this contact and it will do the same thing. And now we are adding this IDs. So when we are adding this while calling this add contact function. So now this add contact function will have that new ID property. Initially contacts empty. So let's first add that ID contact list. Here key should be contact.id. We don't want index. We will not get that value. Mike example.com 3456 add contact. You can see now contacts is an array with 4 properties. So this is the unique ID. Now I can add one more and you are not getting any warning. jd@example.com add contact. So now you have another contact. So you have 2 contacts, JD, and with different ID. So now you are successfully able to display this list without any warning. So each has a unique ID. So whenever you want to render anything, always make sure you add a unique ID. Here, while adding itself, we are creating that ID. So that's always good thing. Let's also display heading here. The contact list. Let's add a div here. This will be contact list. Contact list here. Now here we can add a heading. So web page, you should have only one H1 heading. So we have given this heading in the header. So this should be H1, not H2. So H1 will be the first thing, only thing in your complete page. You should not have another H1. That's good for semantic, and when you are what you can say, for good for SEO reasons also. So when you are indexing your website, like you want that your website to be accessible on Google. So when you search, your website comes. So in that case, Google will see your H1, like what is the H1. So that will be your first page, like main heading or your website that should go inside H1, and whatever you have other things that should go inside H2, H3, like this. So on a single page, you should have only one H1. You should not have multiple H1. H1 should be only one. For others, you can use H2, H3 like that. So in contact list, you should not use H1 again. It should be H2, because this entire, all the components are displayed on the same page, one page. So on one page, you should not have multiple H1. So that's good thing. So now here you can say contact list. Now you can see this contact list is not in the center. Where is contact list? So dot contact list. Let's add this at the top. Now it's in the center, but we don't want to display this heading if there are no contacts. So initially we don't have any contacts. So we don't want to display this contact, and this also need to be centered. Now it's in the center. So what you can do is inside app, we can add a conditional check. So this contact list component. So this heading is coming from contact list. Contacts are also coming from contact. So here we can add a condition. If you have this dot state dot contacts dot length is greater than 0. So if you have some contact, then only display this contact list. Otherwise, we can display heading. Let's say no contacts found. So you can see if you have contacts like array length is greater than 0, then only will display this, otherwise will display no contact. Now you can also add text center. So this is a bootstrap class, so you don't need to write it yourself. Now no context found is this. Now if I add this, you can see contact list is displayed and you have that particular contact. So I can add JD. Let's open console. So whenever you are developing, always make sure your console is open. So you should not have any warning. So now you can see there is no warning and contacts are displayed correct. So this is how you can create contact app manager. So we are just displaying. So we'll be adding some option to edit and delete that particular contact. So we'll do that tomorrow. But this is like a good experience. So how you create actual application, hands-on experience of building a React app. So whatever we are learning every day, you should not just watch these videos, because if we go forward and you are learning a lot of things, and you will not be able to get hands-on experience, like hands-on practice. So every day whatever we learn, you should practice that yourself. All the code you should write your header component, contact form, write what happens when I change that input field, how to set this information, and whatever we create every day, you should practice that. So give some 2 hours every day to yourself, and don't say like I will do it on Saturday, Sunday. That is not good. So every day you should at least give 1 hour or 2 hours. So watch the video and then you can try all this yourself. So every day if you are doing that, then you will learn that and you will have good practice. Otherwise we are learning this only, you are watching videos, and at the end of 1 month you don't have the, even you will not remember syntax how it was used. So only when you are doing this practice every day, then you will be able to actually easily create React application. So I'm not watching anywhere, I'm directly writing all this code. So you should think in that way. So now I want to create the form, I want to store this information, so I need to declare that state, I need to remove this error message while adding. So now I want this information to pass in the app component, so I should declare this state. So all this mentality, like when you are actually coding, practice. So only when you get your good practice, hands-on practice, then only you will be think in that particular way. So it takes some time. So don't every day you should practice that, then you will get hands-on experience, and then you will be easily make your React application. So any React application you can think of and you can easily build that if you practice every day. So whatever we are learning every day, you should take at least 1 hour or 2 hours of time. First watch the videos, whatever recording, whatever we have every day, and then you should practice that yourself every day. So that will only make you perfect, like you will be able to easily understand. That's the only, what you can say, that is the benefit of joining this training. Otherwise if you just watch and then you see like I will do that later, so that later never comes. So every day you should at least spend 1 hour in watching, which videos are at least 1 hour, so you should have 2 hours of time, so you should practice that, all of this information. So I hope that's clear. So make sure you are practicing every day, so you will get hands-on experience. So even if you directly do, so will, as we move on, we'll have difficult things. So some things which are difficult to understand. But if you are not able to write this code, like when to start curly bracket, when to write this conditional, how to write, so this also becomes difficult if you don't have any experience writing that code. So every day you should practice it. So that's why we are not using any React Bootstrap. I could have directly used React Bootstrap form. So you can see, you can just use this and you are done. So CSS, no, not need to write this CSS. But I have written this CSS, so you will understand how to center line, how to write CSS, how to make it use flexbox to make these elements one after the another, like on separate line. So these all things you need to do as a React developer. CSS also you need to write. So previously there were days when we have HTML, separate HTML developer. Now everyone is like everyone wants full stack developer. So you want to know front end, back end, Node.js also, CSS also you need to write. So you should learn how to use write CSS also, how to design pages. So React is not just building front end. You have given CSS. So CSS is also you need to write. So you need to know how to do it from scratch, what you need to do if you want to render elements on separate line. So display flex, then flex direction column that is needed. And all these information, text align center, how to use classes. So nobody tells you like this, you should be having separate header class. So all CSS should go directly inside this particular header. This should be your main selector. Inside that you should write that. So just to avoid these naming collisions, we have separate style component CSS module. But as you add extra dependencies, install packages, your final application size increases. So if you don't want to use those extra libraries, learn those extra libraries, you should follow these practices, like create a separate parent container, and all the CSS like list items should go inside list contact list only. So this is list item inside contact list, this UL inside contact. So now if you write this UL anywhere in your application, this style will not be applied. This will only be applied if it's in the under contact list. So all this information you should learn, you should practice that. That will make you a good React developer. So that's it for today. Any question?